Good evening, everyone. We'll call our meeting to order. Our pledge of allegiance to the
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item on the agenda, approval of our agenda. Motion, please.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We have several minutes here. First is our meeting minutes of September 19th, 2023, our regular board meeting. Motion for approval, please.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Approval of our special meeting minutes of September 26th, 2023. Motion for approval, please.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. And then we have a special meeting of October 2nd, 2023. Motion for approval, please.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, the next item is our communications. So Dr. Lamont and Ms. Shannon Cleveland, please. Student voices, Farmington High School.
For our student voice this month, we chose our Grow Your Own students in our Grow Your Own teacher program. Shannon Cleavey is the instructor of this program and has started a TA at Farmington High School, and Bailey Clue and Cam Roberts are going to tell you about all they've learned through that program.
So I brought two of my students with me. They both want to be teachers, which is exciting, and I'll let them tell you about that in just a second. But we offer 3 classes at the high school: beginning teaching 1, beginning teaching 2, and then we offer a dual credit class, introduction to education as a profession. We offer that through MAC and through CMO. And so these are my 2 of my 4 students that's in the dual credit class. The other 2 are going to be here, but one's playing softball right now, and she couldn't get out of that. So, and the other had to work. So I'm going to let these guys tell you about beginning teaching 1 class and then the beginning dual credit class.
Hi, I'm Cameron Roberts. I'm in the beginning teaching 1 and the dual credit class. So basically, the beginning teaching 1 class is really just kind of getting the gist and the feel for what teaching can bring you. Like right now, we just finished a project today. We made a big old bulletin board and basically put just like the basic, simple information of like teacher pay, hours, the little stuff that you figured you would find out eventually anyways. And then also it's just like, it's fun. It's a fun class. Like, even if I didn't want to be a teacher, I still think I would take that class and have like a good time learning about what it's all about. I'm want to go into secondary education and deaf education. I cannot sign, but my mom knows how to learn. But yeah, so.
We'll recruit them back for that. That's a good thing.
My name is Bailey Klug. I'm in the dual credit. I took beginning teaching 1 last year, but I'll tell you about the dual credit. So we've been learning about different learning styles right now and how to connect with every kind of kid in the classroom, whether that's kids that are more hands-on, kids that are more imaginative, kids that like music, arts, all kinds of things. Because you can't leave any kid behind. And, you have to try to connect to every kid in the class. And to figure out their learning styles, that's a real important thing to do. And that's really what we're going to focus on right now.
Yeah, the dual credit class is much more theory-based, and where the beginning teaching 1 and 2 is much more hands-on, much more project-based. And so I'm very excited, and so I'm just continuing to recruit for our Fellow Teachers of America Club that we just started as well. We've got about 24 some members signed up, and so that's very exciting. So hopefully we can keep them all very interested in going into teaching. So thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Very good, thank you. Dr. Lamont, next with our Heartland Hero of Future Teachers.
It's really hard being short. At this time, if Miss Whitney Shumway would join me on the stage. This month, Farmington High School is proud to announce the Heartland Hero, Miss Whitney Boyer Shumway. FSD works hard to put focus on mental health and behavioral wellness. We would not be able to do this without the support, leadership, and guidance of community members like Whitney. Whitney is a social worker who works in a variety of areas within our county. She's an experienced prevention consultant specializing in adult learning, hospice, volunteering, leadership, and advocacy efforts for suicide prevention. She has a passion for mental health, awareness, and suicide prevention. She's been instrumental in planning and supporting the event Out of Darkness for years in our community. Out of the Darkness walks take place in cities nationwide, in our community, campus, and overnight walks. Those affected by suicide and those who support them raise awareness and much-needed funds, strongly sending the message that suicide can be preventable and that no one is alone. Whitney is instrumental in supporting that effort. She's worked with our elementary counselors and other social workers in providing specialized training in suicide prevention materials, safe talk, and assist mental health first aid and conversations for safer homes. Whitney lives by the belief, do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better. Whitney has recently worked with Central Office Administration on creating a program whereby students will become trained advocates for suicide awareness and prevention. We're excited to begin an endeavor in hope of making connections at high levels and making a difference at the legislative level. Whitney is full of energy, positivity, helpfulness, innovation, and brings a wealth of knowledge to the table when discussing the needs of our students in mental behavioral health. In our utmost pleasure to award our Heartland Hero to Miss Whitney Boyer Shumway. Thank you for what you do. Next, I have our featured teacher, Miss Amy Martin. Right, Miss Amy Tripp joined our FHS family in 2006 and quickly became Amy Martin as she got married that same year. From the minute Amy joined the ELA department, she was looking for ways to make connections not only with students but with her peers. Being a team player and building camaraderie is important to her, and her positive attitude is contagious. One of my favorite things about Amy is that she still has that fresh, bright-eyed, smiling face that she came to us in 2006. You do not pass her in the hallway without a big smile and a hello. She is one of our first staff members in the building and often one of the last to leave. Amy is a problem solver and a deep thinker. She will work tirelessly to find solutions for problems that her students and her peers face. This commitment is what led her peers to nominate her, and they had this to say about her. Amy hits every mark for Teacher of the Year. She is known in the high school English department as our department mom. because she mentors several of us, is always the person you can go to for advice or guidance, whether that be on assisting students, engaging students, looking for new instructional strategies, or better curriculum understanding. And she is the shoulder to lean on when you are struggling to make it through the day. Students frequently tell me how much they love Amy. She is student forward and capable of making changes, not only for her kids, but for everyone around her. Amy goes above and beyond by getting to school each morning early to ensure she is prepared, seminar lab lists completed and sent out, and to tutor. Not only does she tutor most mornings, she runs our academic lab in which she helps students from each of the English classes better understand the fundamentals of our classes and of the subject in general, whether she knows the students personally or not. I have seen the growth of one of the academic lab students with my own eyes, and she has changed in many ways. Not just in her capabilities in English. I can tell that Amy has taught her several valuable skills for my class, but also for life in general. So today I decided to speak to one of Amy's students, and this is a young man who will tell you ELA is not his jam. But Miss Martin is one of his all-time favorite teachers. He has not met success in ELA over the years and joined her academic lab last year and started showing academic improvement. When I asked him why Miss Martin was the one who changed his mindset, he said, because she is so nice. It doesn't matter when or where I see her, she always smiles and says hi. She always helps me even when she knows I maybe could have worked a little harder. I never hesitate to admit to her when I don't understand something because she sits and works with me and makes me understand. Having Miss Martin has helped me understand that maybe I should slow down and pay attention to what I'm learning because it always helps me later. He said he also should have paid more attention in middle school so that he could handle his freshman year. Imagine that. But I will end by saying Amy's passion is unwavering. Even after 18 years, I can send her to PD and she will text me from the conference bubbling with ideas and stories of how she was nearing tears from being so inspired. Our students need that passion and that inspiration now more than ever, and Amy is just the teacher to deliver it. Miss Amy Martin.
Thank you, Dr. Long. Okay, we have some informational reports in our agenda. If you have any questions on those, but we have a discipline report and our financial report. Dr. Gibbs and Ms. Becker have any comments for us now? Okay. And then we will have a brief presentation by Ms. Amanda Sheets on the student achievement report.
Good evening. The sixth version of the Missouri School Improvement Program, MSIP-6, the state's accountability system for reviewing and accrediting local education agencies, or LEAs, outlines expectations for school practices and student outcomes, with the goal of each student graduating ready for success in college, career, and life. MSIP-6 is intended to distinguish the performance of schools and LEAs in valid, accurate, and meaningful ways so that FSD can continue to improve and identify areas of excellence. To this end, DESE will produce an annual performance report. Indicators evaluated on the MSIP-6 APR are divided into two sections. Performance metrics, which measures student outcomes, and continuous improvement metrics, which assesses the quality of work of FSD toward improving the opportunities provided to all students. Beginning with the 2023 through 24 school year, the above-mentioned two components will be evaluated with percentage points weighted as 70% performance outcomes and 30% continuous improvement outcomes. The performance section of the MSIP 6 APR is scored based on the following metrics: academic achievement status, academic achievement growth, success ready students, graduation rate, graduation follow-up. Overall state data presented to the Missouri State Board of Education showed that overall performance rates for the state have not reached pre-pandemic levels. Since the 21-22 school year, there have been slight increases in performance in English language arts, except in grades 6 and 7. In addition, the data also concludes that performance in mathematics and science has increased or held steady in all grades and courses. Additionally, performance has declined across the state in social studies. Overall data from FSD in all subject areas exceeded state averages as outlined in slide 3. Although overall state data over the 3-year span has shown only slight increases in performance in English language arts, FSD has demonstrated continued growth, including in grades 6 and 7, where state data shows no increases. While there are specific grade levels that show a need for improvement in mathematics, FSD has shown overall growth among grade levels in mathematics. The data trends for science performance levels continues to exceed state performance levels in most areas, but show an overall decline over grade levels over a 3-year span of time. Furthermore, FSD has also demonstrated continued growth in social studies, where overall state data has shown a decline. This data is outlined in slides 4 through 7. The Success Ready metric measures student readiness for the next phase of their educational experience. Success Ready indicators include student performance on college and career readiness assessments such as ACT, SAT, and AccuPlacer assessments, as well as advanced credit courses. APR scores in these areas were designated as approaching on-track performance on the 2022 APR report. However, with continued data analysis and student preparation in this area, the sum of weighted scores of 2023 graduates has increased in order to begin meeting the on-track designation of this category. The high school graduation follow-up rate measures the extent to which the students of an LEA pursue gainful opportunities after graduation, as well as the career or technical program chosen. APR scores in these areas continue to be designated as a rating of an on-target performance based on the percentages of the 4- and 5-year graduation cohort groups. This information is outlined in slides 8 and 9. The results from this year's assessments will be used to understand the current condition of student learning by showing where students are academically in relation to the Missouri Learning Standards. At the state level, DESE will use the data to identify the effects of various modes of instruction and access to technology. Results will inform the ongoing work to support schools and improve educational outcomes for students. Schools and educators will be able to identify areas where they need to accelerate student learning and use both collaborative and database decision-making practices with intention and purpose to provide appropriate focuses on learning for increased student achievement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Anyone have? Very good. All right, next we have some policy updates. We get a 30-day review. You see those listed there on our agenda. Now we have some additional discussion action items here. We have a consensual agenda. We'll have a couple presentations here. First by Ms. Gretchen Hill on the early childhood and special education program evaluation.
So for our program evaluation for ECSE and special education, I have a general overview of some of our demographic information that's included. We have 96 total staff.
That includes 59 certified, we have 37 support staff. ECSE only, we have 4 certified classroom teachers, and each classroom does have a para that's in there with them. For 22-23, which is our last year with our totals, we had 386 total in our child count. That was 40 in ECSE, which is considerably higher than where we typically are. So because of that, that's why we added that teacher from last year to this year. And then we have 346 that are in our K-12 program. So you can see on the program evaluation that I had submitted, we've got a 5-year review of what that information looks like in terms of our participation rates, as well as our incidence rate compared to Missouri. So when we talk about our incidence rate, we just mean if we take our total population, what is the percentage of our students who have an IEP or who qualify for special education. So our incidence rate is 9.32% as compared to the state overall rate, which is about 13.3. In terms of the objectives on what we look at for evaluation of a special education program, a lot of that is identified by the state. They write what's called the state performance plan, and they provide us with 17 indicators and several sub-indicators underneath those that say, okay, this is what we're going to do in terms of how we evaluate your program. A lot of that information tends to fall under compliance. So are we evaluating kids appropriately? Do we have the right eligibility? Do we provide the correct services? What happens to our kiddos after they graduate? So that's a lot of what they review from us, and a lot of that has to do with what we submit to them through our core data. And then every 3 years, we also do a file review where we have to go through tiered monitoring. So last year was our file review year. You probably, I assume, heard about it some then. So we'll talk a little bit about what our results were from that in this program evaluation. One of the things that we are going to look at incorporating into that also in terms of our program evaluation are some more district-specific initiatives, and that includes looking at how our students with IEPs are performing on assessments, whether that's district-level assessments like our iReady. We're going to look at MAP assessments, EOCs, our college and career readiness assessments. So how are our IEP kids doing there? How are we preparing those students to be successful on those? And then we are also working as a district on our MTSS program. So we'll look at how they fall into those. So those will be pieces of the program evaluation that will be added in throughout this year. In terms of what our information is that's come back from the state, they split it into early childhood special education as our first piece, and you can see the numbers don't go in order on the indicators. I don't know why DESE sets it up that way. I think it's just to, add fun. So it starts with 6 as opposed to starting with 1, which I feel like would sometimes make more sense, but I don't make the rules. So you can see that in terms of our educational environments, like where our students are placed, we're doing pretty well. With our regular early childhood, we have them placed appropriately in that level. Our special ed, we do have a few more in pull-out ECSE as opposed to some incorporated co-teaching time with ECSE. Our outcomes, with early childhood, we have 3 key areas that we look at with the state that we want to see our students make outcomes on, and that's that positive social emotional, your acquisition of knowledge and skills, and then your use of appropriate behaviors. We measure those by that summary statement 1, which means from the time they started until the time they ended, are they making or exhibiting significant progress? And we're doing really well on those pieces. So we met on the first 2. On the third one, we didn't quite meet, but we were only missing it by about 3 percentage points. So that's pretty solid there. And then our transition, we're at 100% there. That transition they're referring to is moving from early childhood special ed into the regular Part B special ed. So starting with your kindergarten age groups. In terms of our educational environment, so where our kids are receiving their actual special education and general education, the reason for this one is the state wants to make sure that we are allowing our children who have IEPs to participate in non-disabled academic programming at the same type of rate or as close to the same type of rate as possible as their non-disabled peers. And so you can see we're meeting all of those targets there, doing well. We don't have any issues with disproportionate representation, which is good. That means we're not overqualifying males as something or overqualifying females, or we're not overqualifying by race. So those are key points that we want to make sure we're vigilant on. Secondary transition just means like after they graduate, how are things working out for them? We are pretty solid in terms of our how are they doing with their exiters, what are their post-school outcomes, how does that look? We do have a few more students identified as IEP dropouts than we would like to see. And that is one of those persistence to graduation pieces that I work with Dr. Conley and Dr. Lamont to make sure that we're addressing those as necessary. DESE also sends out annually what we refer to as the Special Education Determinations Report. This is required by the Federal Department of Education. So every year they analyze us on all of those pieces on that table. We have received the highest possible score. So you're scored 1 through 4. We receive 4s on everything, which is very nice to see. Recommended changes that we actually are going to need to look at based on our data, so pieces that we do need to work towards. We've received a warning about disproportionate suspension, which just means that we have more students who have received out-of-school suspensions than the state would like to see. And so that is one of those pieces that MTSS potentially is going to help, because we can hopefully catch some of those behaviors before they exacerbate to the point that we have to look at an OSS. And then we have 4 areas of identified growth areas from our tiered monitoring results. And so that's from that file review that we did last year. We submitted all of those, DESE reviewed all of those, and they said, okay, in these 4 areas, these are things that we would like to see you guys show improvement on. To show that improvement, and most of them have to do with our evaluation and eligibility procedures, we submit, okay, this is the type of training that we're going to do, this is a template or a format that we're going to use to complete those things. We put those things into practice, and then we resubmit different files, or we submit new files to show that, yes, we have made those improvements like they would like to see. So to address most of that, again, we'll work with process coordinators and department staff to address the growth areas, collaborate with administration and staff as necessary, and then work with administration and RPDC staff to get the appropriate amount of professional development to the special education department. Do you have any questions?
So, any questions? You said that we're not back to, certain levels, I guess, as far as, did the state change some of the guidelines as far as what they're actually measuring for student testing and things, or is it just, none of that's been changed? It's just,
For special ed,
yeah.
you mean? No, the state hasn't showed any of those changes. Those are just pieces that, even as good as a district is, there's always room for improvement. So unless we have 100% of our kids that are always like scoring the very tip top in advanced or the highest possible scores, which you're typically not going to see, we're always going to be striving to how can we improve.
Did you say that, let me make sure I'm right about it. Did you say that there was a disproportionate number of kids ISS?
So it's primarily OSS, so out of school suspensions, yes.
And is that not, how do you address that?
So your best thing that you can do with it is what can be done ahead of time to try to prevent behaviors from escalating to getting to that point. So that's part number 1. And then your second piece of it is you look at what alternatives to that out, because that's what the state's concerned about. If they're not in school, then they're not receiving the services they need to be successful. And so we look at, well, what alternatives could we put in place as opposed to an out-of-school suspension?
And that's kind of an individualized
Mhm.
kind of thing, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Kraus, for your presentation on the school pilot program evaluation.
Good evening. Okay, and the last of the reports. So I'm here to report on the Culture and Climate Survey. What's interesting about this is that there are several different ways that we get parent voice, student voice, and staff voice. One of which is sending out surveys. And we, as a district, I believe, send out a lot of different surveys. And so we can have a lot of very focused and concentrated results when we get things back. But what I'm going to talk about are the 2 surveys that we have sent out in previous years that were pretty large scale. Like Gretchen said, last year we went through our MSIP review. Part of that MSIP review was sending out a required survey to staff, students, and parents alike, so that you could work on areas as a needs assessment. I will tell you that in the previous years, in 21-22, we sent out, post-pandemic, or kind of wrapping up when kids were coming back to school, we sent out a pretty hefty survey to our staff, students, and parents, relatively focused intentionally on wellness and safety, well-being, and how they felt in returning to school, and what we could do in a supportive nature for students. So that data will look it'll look significantly different than the data that we collected from 22-23. And the reason why is because last year in 22-23 we used the DESE survey that they requested that we use. It was interesting that it was much more heavy in questions for staff members. We did not have very good turnouts last year with our results. So the previous year, even with sending out the survey 4 to 5 different times and pushing it out, we only had about a 24% return rate from that 2021 school year. The next year, we had even less, which ranged from 5% in some cases of return rate to a 35% rate, and some others. So we've got to figure out how to get more of that feedback in return. So of that feedback that was returned, the comment section was interesting. We got more comments back from the first round when it came to safety and wellness, and a lot of parent, suggestions with things and staff suggestions. And they seem to prefer that survey rather than the actual DESE survey. And again, I don't know whether it was because of length or whether it was just the timing. I'm not really sure. And as a district, I will say that I'm a little biased towards that. I think we do a nice job with the safety and security, and many of those questions were more familiar, I think, to student, staff, and to parents. We had a lot of comments back up, I don't understand what this question is, or it's not relevant to me, with the DESE survey. So Dr. Gibson, I, and the team will be working on creating a different type of survey, even though we won't have years to be able to make comparisons. And that's the juggle balance that you have, is finding the correct survey that you're wanting to get the information. However, what I can tell you is that there were things from both surveys that popped on both consistently. We really did not have anything that was significantly hot and heavy weak from parents or from staff members, as far as this is a very significant weakness for you. Now in the comments they would make certain comments like, I really think you need to improve this, but we did not have anything in that pie chart that shows that there wasn't anything really low in standard. What I can tell you is that discipline and mental health, behavioral health were very significant areas both years from all staff, students, and parents. It always popped and rose to the top. Behavior and discipline and behavioral health were viewed as priorities in staff discussion and in parent discussion every time. We broke these down and had separate subcommittees to actually hand out all of the surveys and go through the results, and we had parents pick apart things and what were your hot and heavies whenever you were looking through these questions. And regardless of which group it was, they always talked about the behavioral health needs within that. The significant differences between the elementary buildings and the secondary buildings had to do with drug use or bullying. So there was much more of a turnout from parents or staff members whenever it came to how significant is drug abuse within the building. The difference also fell with the students. Your students were going to tell you that there was a much bigger problem with drug usage than your parents and your staff were going to say. Parents had more of a pattern in saying, I don't know, ask my kid. There would be comments such as that. And students were much more probably varied and balanced in their responses to things whenever it came to, do you feel that discipline is balanced? Do you feel that everyone is affected equally with disciplinary actions or whatnot? Again, there wasn't anything that popped out as hugely significant. However, I will tell you that a majority of, on the good side of it, I've talked kind of about the yuck, but the good side of it is a majority of the parents who responded on each survey, and it would either end up being a 90% or an 85%, anywhere between that when it came to schools, consistently said that they felt that their students were safe at school, or it was a good place, or they belonged. I can also tell you that when staff broke this data down, there wasn't one time that I would have staff that would come together that wouldn't say who was the one person or who were the two people that said that they didn't feel valued as a staff member. They could look at beautiful results, but every time they would go to maybe the 0.5% or the 1% that said that they didn't belong, which I thought spoke volumes to looking at things, even though it was small, it was things that they wanted to fix. So you will see on our CSIP that a lot of those things, when it talks about discipline, behavioral health, any type of inequalities, it's on the CSIP. So you're going to see that conscious discipline is pushed throughout. You're going to see that conflict resolution is pushed. You're going to see that the safety, and when I say safety, you know that safety is also that sense of belonging, and that is that first place that they want to start. I would say if I were to throw out the survey right now, you are yet again, it being October, you're going to see that discipline is going to pop to the top. You're going to see behaviors pop to the top. You're going to see regulation skills and coping mechanisms and strategies pop to the top every single time. That's what you're going to hear. You're going to hear it from parents, you're going to hear it from students, and you're probably going to hear it from staff members most of all. Again, a little difficult to compare the two, but we hope to be able to come back to you next year with some type of comparable data and pull out and extract some of those questions that were the same. And you have access to all of those surveys, which is probably is pretty big and significant.
What kind of response, percentage-wise, do you need to really have a valid statistical study?
Again, you can pull surveys off of a national survey research site, and you will have people tell you that this is not a valid survey. And that in terms of actually researching appropriate and having research banks and think tanks create the survey, you will always have somebody that comes back and tells you that this was not applicable to me. So again, they would say put things in there like more academically focused, and when you put more academically focused questions in there, they would say, why is this question in there? And again, I'm the person that's going to read that one person or that 1% that says, I don't like such and such. I'm going to try to dig and figure out what can be done better, and I think your leaders and your administrators are going to be exactly the same. We take it personally, and we try to be better, and we know that there are areas that we need to work on. I don't know how to get more voice, other than just having those very intentional conversations when you are with a parent to try to dig down and get real answers from them when they're struggling or when things are going good, and taking the time to sit and ask them, what can we do better? What can we do better for you? And do you have any suggestions? And just being vulnerable enough to ask those things when the times come in a natural setting. Probably not a good answer, but
No, it's not. It sounds like when you have the opportunity to visit with the parents, they're open with you, though. They're
always,
upfront, they're transparent with their
always.
song. So I think that's a big step there. Good. Very good. Thank you. Okay, you see your item essential agenda. If you have questions, ask the motion for approval of the essential agenda, please.
So moved.
Second. Second, all in favor? Opposed? Okay. All right, Dr. Gibbs, our superintendent update.
All right, some updates across the district. First up, wanted to let you know about the safety grant that was awarded, second round of money that was provided by the governor for safety throughout our schools. And Corey Smith and John Krause really worked on finishing that application up, bringing that home for us. So I appreciate that work. We'll be adding ballistic film. We've already got some quotes for different areas of the school that were a little more at risk. Some new doors and windows, updates to our fire alarm systems, some safety programs that we need to extend, more cameras, videos, and building entry improvements to the operations building and then to the W.L. Johns building, which will will actually start next week, creating a secure vestibule for when you walk in, somebody will have visibility there as opposed to being parked down the hall. So looking forward to that starting and getting those safety measures in place, and we're excited about the grant funds for that. Ms. Hill gave a great presentation, really appreciate her work on that, but as a team, our superintendent team and then Ms. Hill, we've been working intently to talk through some SPED department issues and provide a more continuum of services, so we'll have some recommendations for you next month, hopefully on what that will look like, and just some new programs that we're working towards, both in the short term and then long term, to address some of the things that Angie talked about, the behavior and how we kind of are proactive in our approaches as opposed to reactive. The project at Southbrook has been challenging to say the least, but we are thankful that we're hopefully going to get the CNA and MedSearch program down there fairly soon. So Josh and Mark have been working with the contractors on the challenges that have come up with that building, but we're working through that, and we'll soon be able to get at least one part of that. Substitute shortages are a major concern, brought up when Angie and I were at the PRC meeting, but hopefully the adjustments to pay, we were in one of the lower schools in our area, and we have increased that just now, so we'll hopefully pull some people back in to be substitutes and recognize the hard work of those that are already sub. On the next page, you'll see that we have had some good jumps at a couple buildings in attendance this year, mainly at Truman and the high school. We can shout out those there, and then the fact that enrollment is up over 111 is what the count that Crystal last provided, so that's a good number there. Dr. Krause working hard in her department, and we're really bringing some inclusive work to the forefront there with what she's doing, and we'll be looking to roll information out regarding that. And then also the drug testing for our extracurricular activity participants. Dr. Krause and Mr. Mills have been working on that. We'll be launching that in the near future. Moving on to Turner's area, we have teachers across the district that are working diligently on letters at the lower grades. That's on the science of reading, and as state push, and is really making an impact on our reading across the state. We move to the upper grades, and it's the Missouri Reading Initiative work that's going on, as you can see evidenced in the classrooms. So excited about the work going on there. And then the professional growth community, I'll address what Ms. Hill was talking about, the multi-tiered systems of support, and what that is providing wraparound services for not only the academics, but the behavior to meet their needs, so that we can they go hand in hand. We can't focus on one without focusing on the other. And so I appreciate the work of that team and the leadership that they're getting from the top down to make all of that happen. Moving down to Mr. Mills' department and athletics and activities, we have fall sports winding down with district competitions, and we are in the fourth inning, and we're down 5-3 on the softball championship. So hopefully the girls can turn it around and bring home the championship tonight. So they're in a battle with Notre Dame right now. And then the soccer team is doing well and moving on through their season. Cross-country team recently won the conference, and they had the top runner in each race, so that was exciting to see. Communications, we have started the attendance challenge with Dan, the dancing attendance man, moving around the district. So he is one of the air dancing guys that will be out in front of our building. So if you drive by and see him waving in the wind, it's because for that 2-week period, that building won the attendance challenge. And Veterans Day celebrations are returning to the buildings this year on November 10th, so mark your calendars for that. We are moving closer to a print newsletter. We've got some pricing on that, so Mindy and I are working with the Farmington Free Press and hoping to get that out at least a couple times this year, and it will hit 7,000 households and far exceed the amount of people we can reach just by our Remind apps, because those only go to people that have students here. Technology update, we got through the Wi-Fi network issue, and So if you see a bus driver